Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of YouTube's dark secret known as the Bear Bar Tales. Presenting this show of horrors is none other than I, YouTube's even darker secret. A bear whose love of seducing the BBEG instead of fighting is only surpassed by his love of the internet's cringe. Today, we're going to revisit a video format I really enjoyed making the first time around. Short stories. Not every tale of woe needs to be the length of a dissertation, but can sometimes be summed up rather quickly, and today those tales are the ones we are going to embark on. Instead of breaking down each video as we go, I'll do it at the end. If you like this video, go ahead and roll to grapple that subscribe button. Each subscriber brings me closer to understanding why a bear, given critical thought, chose to be on YouTube instead of bringing the world together. At the end of the video, I have an announcement of a new way you can get your Bear Bard fix, but for now, let's get to the stories. Our first story is titled Dice Fudger. For some reason, I really wanted to read this like Bobby Boucher. Mama said that boy is a dice fudger. Playing D&D while deployed. Only escape from this hellhole of a job. Jackass has a problem with fudging dice rolls and everyone knows it. Played for 2.5 hours one night. One of the guys calls him out over the group chat. Guys, I'm not fudging my dice rolls. I sent a screenshot of his rolls from the night before. Nothing below a 16 other than one roll. He wasn't allowed to play anymore. And scene. Our next story. Player hates that a PC sounds too black. We're playing a mini joke campaign and one player, who's black, writes up a monk based on Black Dynamite. He plays it pretty faithful, and later that day a player comes to me and says they're uncomfortable with how he talks. Says it sounds like a caricature. I'm black myself, and it's all it takes not to laugh at her. But I hold it back and explain that he's just talking like a famous movie character. I show her a video of Black Dynamite and she says she understands. The next day, I found out from the PC who plays Black Dynamite that she told him I told her he couldn't play that character no more. This pisses me off, and I explain what really happened before telling her not to come to the next session. And scene. Next up, former teacher's wife creeps out the GM at a local game shop. As the title says, I was running a game at a local shop and in walked a former teacher and his wife from when I was in high school. I graduated 2006, so it had been a while. We started to make characters and the wife makes a straight up sex-obsessed, now freed sex slave who loves sex. Okay? She tried to everything. She a creature in the bathroom. She the ship's captain, and wanted me to describe in great detail what was happening, all while she smiled and bit her lip as her husband just nodded at me approvingly. And scene. This next story is titled A Micro Horror Story. Player brings his DM screen and personal dice tower to the game, insists on using it because the DM gets to roll behind a screen, so why shouldn't he? Also, it's his lucky dice tower. Yeah, I bet it is. The table is barely big enough for the character sheets, by the way. His giant wooden DM screen obstructs everyone's view of the game. For the record, I shot down the idea faster than lightning through a wet dog. It's kind of a jacked way of saying it. And scene. Should I come up with something more witty to say between these stories? Anyway, here's Thorn Die. New session, a player is excited to show his new set. Player likes using Magic Missile a lot. Rolls his D4 a lot. Player loses the D4 and gets bummed out. Session wraps up, DM promises to find it for him. Later, DM walks with her dinner to the table, finds the D4. And scene. But then if I was too witty between these stories, would people still care about the stories? Oh yeah, next one's called Ongoing Conflict with Player Who Works Against the Party. Hello. First time posting here. In addition to sharing, I'm also hoping for some advice. The story is about a GM turned player whose character, evil based on behavior, does not want to work with the rest of the party and sometimes actively derails our mission. I go back a long time with this person, and their characters, lawful good paladin, etc., were team players. They ended up taking a turn as GM, and besides typically new GM growing pains, a bit too strong of a my job is to defeat the party mindset, things were fine when they were GM. Now they're back as a player, and maybe they want to explore new experiences, because they are playing an edgelord rogue with a get revenge for my murdered family backstory. At the beginning, they would do things like go stealth without telling us, go in a different direction, private message the GM, just annoying things. But lately, they have taken things to another level. We were in a situation where the enemies were going to sacrifice innocent people to summon their god. The guy starts attacking the victims during the battle with no explanation. We suddenly have to pull double duty protecting the victims from both sides, and we barely keep the victims alive. Obviously, we were pissed, and he won't even tell us why he did it. Basically, mind your own business. We have to fight him, tie him up, interrogate him, cast mind-reading spells to finally extract an ounce of explanation. He wanted to complete the ritual by murdering to ask the evil god who killed his family. After many back and forth exchanges, I couldn't even get him to promise not to murder innocents. He says he will not hesitate to murder an innocent person if it brings him closer to revenge. First, feel free to disagree with me about my feelings that the player shouldn't play a character this way. But in any case, what would you say to this player? And scene. Okay, but if I make these in-betweens too boring, then people will leave. Next story is called True RPG Horror Story. Saw a game notice on the board at an old Pegasus Books in Milwaukee, Oregon. Thought it would be cool. Before internet time, so I called these folks and met up. Go to a dude's house and I'm the only girl. Game starts, rolling along, fun stuff, until player says he's going to rape a goblin. DM tells him to roll. Then every single move was about forced sex on something. I excused myself to the bathroom and went out the window with my purse. Left my dice. There's my true RPG horror story. And scene. Big yikes on that last one. I guess the title was earned? Our next story is called We Can Make Any Character, except that a character who couldn't use magic really couldn't do anything. This happened about 2 years ago. I found a group to play with where the DM told me he was designing his own campaign. He told me I could make any character I wanted, thus I made a half-orc barbarian. The other characters were a druid, a warlock, and a bard. The campaign started, and it focused around fighting and hunting ghosts, except that anyone who could not use magic could not see or hurt the ghost. My character couldn't do anything in the first encounter, except flail around and almost get killed because he couldn't see anything, thus the enemies had advantage on him. I asked the DM if this was fair, and he said that I should have known that my character won't be able to use magic. He never told me about his campaign needing a character who could use magic. My character couldn't see or hear half the NPCs because they were ghosts, nor did I get any items to help me see them even in the second session. I never went for the third. And scene. Okay, but seriously, should I tell jokes in between? Like, so I was eating some berries the other day and actually, they're not bears. They wouldn't get it. Well, on to our next story. Storyteller cancels the game because ADHD is not a real mental health condition. So I enjoy playing Vampire the Masquerade. It is my favorite RPG, and I think I have a decent grasp on how to roleplay the different clans. I find a game online to play over Discord, and we have our session 0, and things are looking okay. I make a Malkavian tattoo artist that suffers from ADHD and synesthesia. I apologize if I mispronounced anything there. Since Malkavians tend to have issues with their mental health. I chose these conditions because I have them, and I don't want to choose anything that I could portray wrong. When I told the storyteller this, he made it a point to tell me that these conditions were not real mental health issues and that I should be more crazy to play correctly. When other players tried to explain to him that yes, ADHD and synesthesia are real mental health conditions, he ended up getting mad and canceling the game because we refused to play correctly and admit that ADHD was fake. This was session 0. We never even got to play. And scene. I could give fun bear facts here maybe. There are only 8 species of bear, and the next story is titled Horny Guy Tries to Join Campaign. Okay, so this is a real short one, but it still counts. For some context, I'm a new GM on MRPG, and my campaign was in the looking for players phase. I saw some people wanted to join, so I looked over their applications. Then there was that guy. Instead of filling in the things he needed for the application, mainly class, they instead wrote some really horny shit in there. Mainly about how big their lower nose was and how they'd attract the ladies. He also said the reason his character was joining this adventure was simply because he wanted to aka because they were horny. I, a person who incredibly despises ERPG, rejected their application and am now posting it here. So yeah, this wasn't much of a horror story and more of a reminder to catch red flags before they even join. And scene. Yeah, you like that last one? You thought for a second there was a second bear fact coming, then BAM! Story name. Well, either way, this means we gotta run back through and give some thoughts. With 10 stories today, I gotta keep each fairly brief, so here we go. Story 1. Why play this game to cheat? Seriously, I know it sucks not to do something, but that's part of the game, right? Like, don't like it? Then go write a book, or even just some short stories. Sometimes the mistakes make the best parts of the adventure. 2. I wish I could have been there for that campaign, but what she did, I believe Black Dynamite himself would describe as
job mother.
But seriously, if you don't like what's in a game while everyone else does, just leave. Don't tell others what to do. Story 3. This story hit me twice. Once, I had to laugh at how absurd it was, and second, on how many levels of wrong it is. Just to name a few, first they went in public for their kink. Not kink shaming at all, but you can't just spring that on some dude that wasn't wanting to be part of it. And the fact that it was a former student, I'm not a teacher, but I've been a coach since 2009 at all different levels, and I couldn't imagine doing something like this around them. I don't care how long ago they were my kid. Story 4. This story reeks of a younger sibling. He can have it, so why can't I? Good for that DM for just shutting it down. Story 5. The D4 is truly the Lego's older cousin. I've personally stepped on both, and it's a bad day. Keep track of your D4s, kids. Story 6. I hate this crap. Like, if your DM is cool with an evil character, fine. But it's on you to find a reason to work with the party. If you choose not to do that, you're a dick. Match that with his edgelordiness, and it's just a nice bit of icing on the cake. Help your DM and help your party. Work with them, not against them. Story 7. This one's actually a bit scary. First, rape a goblin? Seriously? Go get f***ed. Second, realize who's there. Talk with everyone to make sure they're okay with topics like that. Or at least warn new people that this is how you play. I'm glad you bounced as soon as you felt uncomfortable. Always go with the gut. Sorry you lost your dice. Story 8. Warn your players if you're going to dick them over. If the DM planned on doing this and signed off on the character without offering some sort of trick like a potion or a spell or even silver weapon, then he just sucks. Story 9. This just sucks. I'm glad the other players had your back. It doesn't matter what your opinion is on mental health issues, it's just bad to tell someone what they feel is fake. I would be fine if he even said something like, you know, these guys usually have more severe issues like untreated schizophrenia, etc. if you wanted something more dramatic, but just to tell him what you feel isn't real and then bounce, get out of here. Story 10. Yikes, that was a dodged bullet. I always say there's a table for everyone. If you're interested in erotic roleplay, again, I'm not going to kink shame, just find a table that's aiming for that. If you can't find them, start your own. I promise others will join. At the very least, he put it in his app, so he didn't spring it on anyone in the middle of the game. I'll give him that. Whew, 10 stories. Short stories, but still, that was fun. Let me know what you guys think of this format. I like it, but I'm interested in hearing what you guys prefer. I think for now, I'm going to keep going back and forth, get a little bit of everything. Big stories, little stories, I like it all. If you like this story and want to hear more, go ahead and like and subscribe. I love watching this channel as it's just starting to bud. If you have a story you want read on here, you can connect with me on either Discord or the subreddit. The description can be found below. As promised, I now have a new way for you to listen to me. I started a Bear Bard's Tale podcast. At the moment, it'll be filled with stories from here on YouTube, stripped of commentary and put together in roughly half-hour episodes. So far, I only have the first episode out, but I will continue to bring more stories over from YouTube. In the future, I may add more traditional podcast formats around D&D, but for now, it'll just be the stories. You can access the podcasts on all major podcast distributors such as Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, and others. If you have any ideas for the podcast, you can let me know here as well. But with that, I think it's time to call it a day. As always, let me know in the comments what you thought of the stories. For now, this has been the Bear Bard, and I'll see you guys next time.